Hello, adventurers, and welcome to the Micflayers podcast, coming to you from Angry Town. Population, the entire D&D fan base. I'm your host, Conor O'Brien. There we go. And joining me as always is my co-host, Mr. Martin O'Dwyer.
How are you, Connor?
I'm doing pretty okay now, thank you very much. I mean,
over an Angry Town.
Relatively speaking, I'm doing as okay as someone can do when the fan base that they, or the fandom that they really care about is burning. Just
Yeah, it's been so, like, I remember like the 26th of December this last year being like, man, everything's so good, like I'm going to finish up my first campaign next year, really looking forward to it. We're almost finished our campaign, it's all going really well, like life stuff is going really well, it's all going really great. And then the new year happened, and like two out of my most favorite pastimes, the company's just entirely shit. How? Yeah, okay, we're going to
it doesn't matter.
So see, now they like hide your video if you swear within the first 15 seconds.
Oh really? Okay.
Yeah, they change, like, it screwed a load. They demonetize you immediately as well. So there's and they retroactively applied it, so a bunch of channels got absolutely screwed by it.
Wow.
But aside from like terrible YouTube policies, a terrible D&D policy came out over Christmas, didn't it, Connor?
It's not a good time for policies, Martin.
No. No, it is not.
Yeah, so okay, before we jump into this, how are you? How are things going? We have not had an episode of the podcast in over a month.
Yeah, other than the sort of looming impending doom I'm generally feeling about like D&D, pretty solid, you know, generally pretty solid. It's been a fun time. I've done a good bit of work with my own campaign and stuff. It's going really well. I think we're about halfway through our like Greco-Roman arc. That's kind of, I see this is kind of maybe like the third last arc in my campaign, maybe the fourth last arc. It's kind of a setup thing to get them to basically give them a bit more time with the villain and kind of set up the stakes and kind of show that this is like a global issue rather than just like these specific kingdoms that you guys have already been to. And it helped as well that like one of the players had sent an NPC who's basically like his underling there to check things out and see what's going on. So it's going to tie into like the next big arc. The next arc I'm doing is probably going to be quite long because it'll be to do with like the players finding their gods and earning their gods' favor, and then like the boon that associates with that. And then the arc after that will most likely be the final arc where like everyone gets together to fight the big bad. So I've got a lot of planning and going and working ahead of me for the next while, just in terms of like I've generally a solid idea in my head of what's going on, but when I'm thinking of stuff a long way out, I don't tend to write it down. I tend to just like solidify those ideas in my head, and then when it comes time to write it down, I basically like improv on the stuff I had always planned based on, you know, a connection that might come up or an idea that might come up that's better or worse. I did a really fun it was like a trip up a mage's tower. It took like I think 2-3 sessions just because we had some issues, but I got to throw some fun stuff. Like they fought, I got to throw like a bunch of puzzles at them. I got to use the like the only thing I've liked so far from Strixhaven, which was the blood mage. Is it the Auric blood mage? I think that's the name of it.
It's a monster stat block.
Yeah, it's a monster stat block from Strixhaven. It's called like the Auric. Yeah, it is. ORIQ blood mage. Okay. They're pretty fun actually. I got to use them, and I got to use a couple other things. And I used my first beholderkin. This fun little guy, a death tyrant.
Oh, very nice.
I got to use. Unfortunately, one of my players was sick, so we couldn't actually play in person. So I did it virtually.
That happened in our campaign as well. I have a beholder mini, and I bought it specifically for the Ultref arc, and we ended up playing because of, I think it's more COVID. Because that was COVID. But we ended up doing most of that arc over video call, and I had the mini present. I'm like, here's what it looks like. Shame we won't get to use it.
Yeah, it's exactly what I did as well. As soon as we started, as soon as he was like, "This is what he looks like, guys. This is what it would have looked like if you were here in person." But hilariously though, it happened to me like 3 times because like one week one of my players got sick, another week they couldn't. Another one of my players like, "Oh, I can't joke. I'm also sick," because there was like an ick going around after Christmas. So like I have a manticore there. I have, what else do I have? Yeah, I have a manticore there, and then I have the death tyrant. and I was going to use an enhanced Sphinx against them originally, so I was going to use the Manticore as a stand-in because I didn't have a Sphinx in close enough. But yeah, unfortunately, I had to do it virtually, which not a big deal. I'll get to use them for like next campaign or something. Particularly, I'm a particular fan of. I got this one. It's a diving griffin from WizKids. It's
very nice.
It's the sculpt is very, very nice. So, and a griffin is a good fun like low level creature, and I specifically have an area that is famous for having lots of griffins in my next world, which should be very fun. Oh, yes, I also started writing my next world because I'm glutton for punishment and don't finish anything.
I have yet to start any. Well, okay, I'm not writing a new world, but I'm doing some heavy rewrites on my existing world. When this campaign is done, we have about 4 weeks left in this campaign.
Yeah. Are you gonna do like
Sorry?
successive campaigns in Asteria, or are you gonna like make a new world? Because like I'm going new world entirely for my next campaign because I just
it'll
know
still be
much more.
Asteria.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it'll still be Asteria. But I'm going to rewrite. Some places it will be relatively the same. Where you guys have been in Redalia will stay more or less the same. Because you guys are familiar with it, but there's areas around that or like far away from that that really haven't come up, but I knew in my head that this is the way the landmass is shaped and this is where things are, and I'm going to like deform that entirely into something else because I've come up with other ideas in the meantime, and I've kind of my way of thinking about how to world build has evolved in the past 3 years that we've been running this campaign. Weirdly, some stuff I did in the first campaign that I thought I didn't like, and then I tried to avoid doing in the second campaign during the world building stage. I'm now like, no, I should probably go back to that. So it's a big multi-year back and forth thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm excited to wrap this campaign.
Yeah. We had a pretty incredible boss fight last time. With like the whole just like holding off an army of zombies and then finally taking out Cesarak and all that stuff. Like I don't think we've ever prepped as hard for a fight as a group than we did for that battle with Cesarak because we can't kill him.
Well, you can blame Mike for that. Mike made an unkillable zealot barbarian that I have a hard time killing unless I really try. So in like I know well that in most combat encounters I'll always attack Mike's character, but I'm just doing this because realistically the bad guys would attack him because he's a threat.
Yeah.
But they don't know that like even when they drop him to 0 or whatever, he just has this eternal rage. He'll never die. But they still do it, and every time I have to hit Mike's character because I'm like, okay, this guy's goal. Realistically, he'd attack Wabu, but I'm like, that's such a waste of a turn for me because I'm like, he's either losing hit points, but it doesn't matter when he drops to 0, or he's already at 0, and I'm just banging my head against the wall, wasting turns. But I mean, if nothing else, right? When you think about it in like a very rules kind of only lens, the fact that Mike cannot be killed in that way means that he's basically just soaking up the action economy of the enemy forces. Which means it helps the team collectively because he's just like, yeah, keep on coming, keep the hits coming, doesn't matter, I'm gonna keep fighting anyway, so whatever.
He also doesn't care if you drop a fireball on him because health points mean nothing to him.
That's what I mean. Like, health points are like, honestly, it's kind of at a point where I'm like, you can track health points, but
yeah,
does it even matter?
I just don't block for them anymore because it doesn't matter. Like unless I want to do damage to a specific character now, I just don't block from like
and reflect it. Yeah. And the thing is, like, so so Mike made that unkillable turtle warrior barbarian. And so I just said, hey, what if like I took that because the Cesarak is basically an evil undead copy of him in our campaign. And I said, hey, wouldn't it be fun if I just like took that exact character, but then I made it even more unkillable? And like honestly, yeah, I'll show you the stat block. I suppose I could read out some stuff from the stat block here.
Yeah,
because you're done. You're done fighting him.
He is dust.
He is correct.
And we finally recovered Flint's sword after years of real time and probably like a year in game time.
So like the thing of it is, right, like I said, when it comes to Zealot Barbarians, normally they're just like, they're very, very tough to kill. Even drop them to 0 hit points doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And then even when you're on 0 and you failed all your death saves, when you get high enough level in Barbarian, it's like you can just maintain your rage until you get healed, and then you can just drop your rage if you even want to, but you still don't have to at that point.
And then Mike's backed into Paladin as well, so he has lay on hands always.
And he can just go boop 1 hit point, and now I'm back up again.
Yeah.
So a couple of things that this guy has.
Mike, I just realised Mike basically made a turtle version of Joe Manganiello's Arcane Cruel.
Well, he was Pally Barb, yeah.
Yeah, he basically just inversed it. Goddamn.
So he has an average of 440 hit points.
That doesn't surprise me.
At 21 natural armor. He's proficient in strength, dex, and con saving throws. A lot of stuff I just took proficiencies and stuff Mike already had, and what made sense. He's also he's resistant to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing, like across the board. Doesn't matter if it's magical or not, which is normally reserved for players that are barbarians and not monsters. But like I said, it makes sense if he's
a clone of a player.
Yeah, and he's immune to necrotic and poison entirely. Because of how high a level is, his proficiency bonus is +7. He has 5 legendary resistances, which is something I like to do when it comes to high level bosses. Like for me, having 3 legendary resistances is like level 8 to 14 stuff, and if you get past 14, I'm like, all bets are off. I'll put as many of those legendary resistances as I want. He has magic resistance, so advantage on saves anyway against spells. He has a martial undead thing, but I think I just took that from the basic stat block for a Death Knight. His swords, he does 4 sword attacks, and each one is a +14 to hit. And then it's 1d8 +11 slashing, and then 46 necrotic on each hit. And then once a day, as an action, he can summon 1d4 +4 shadows that appear within range of him. Except they have these changes. The shadows have a +9 to hit on their strength train attack instead of like a 4 or 5 or something like that. Their AC is now 19 instead of like 11 or something like that. And they have a fly speed equal to their regular speed, and they can hover as well. So they can basically zoom around the room, and they're a lot tougher than your standard one.
Do you ever use Shadow Assassins? They're like kind of like shadow demony looking humanoids that have, I think, 2 short swords, and they do a ton of damage. They do an absolute ton of damage, and they have some really fun abilities. But they also have the shadow strength drain thing, and they're a much higher CR. I think they're like CR 5 to 8 maybe. I used like 4 of them in a fight with my party, and my swashbuckler rogue got extremely lucky, is the way I'll put it. Because
do they have a similar thing, strength drain ability?
They have the exact same thing, but it's on like a short sword hit that also does a bunch of necrotic damage.
Oh crap! I'm gonna have to use them at some point.
There's them, and then there's also there's another one that's like something of Baal. I think it's the Assassin of Baal or whatever, and they go invisible, and then if they're within 5 feet of a creature, it's called like Aura of Murder. They have like advantage on their attack, and I think they do like a sneak attack as well or something like that. Where are we? Shadow Assassins. They are 9. That's it. Yeah.
What source material are they
in? They are in Waterdeep Dungeon of the Mad Mage. So they're okay. They basically have all the good things that shadows have, but they have a shadow blade that's +8 to hit, 1d6 piercing, and 3d6 necrotic, and then they get the strength drain added onto that as well.
And is that still a D4?
The target strength score is reduced by D4 each time it's hit by this attack. Yeah, and their resistance to acid, cold, fire, lightning, thunder, bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing from non-magical attacks. Immune to necrotic and poison. Immune to exhaustion, frightened, grapple, paralyzed, petrified, prone, poisoned, and restrained.
And what CR did you say they were?
9. They have 78 hit points.
I mean, 78 isn't like huge in hit points, but just the fact that they have all those resistances, and then they have like the fact that if they hit you even a couple times, depending on the strength of your character, that can be game over for you. Couple of final abilities this Cesarac has. You've seen the Souls of the Damned ability. It's 2 legendary actions.
Yes, I did.
The Cesarac chooses one creature of size large or smaller that they can see within 60 feet. The creature must make a DC 20 Charisma save. On a failure, the creature is pulled into a dark demi-plane by malicious shadowy spirits. Once pulled into this plane, the creature takes 66 damage as spirits ravage them. The target stays in this plane for 1 minute or until it succeeds a saving throw. The creature completes a saving throw at the start of each of its turns, blah, 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 so on, so on. Actually, that should be the end of each of its turns. But anyway. And then here's the real kicker about how not you just cannot kill this guy. So this is called Eternal Rage. General Cesarac's Eternal Rage never ceases. Having 0 hit points does not knock him unconscious, and he cannot be killed by being reduced to 0 hit points. The Cesarac also has advantage on... Oh, that's a regular strength. That's just a regular rage ability. But basically, I basically flat out say reducing him to 0 does nothing. It does not like bring him down. I had a few ideas in my head for how you guys could kill him. A lot of the ones you mentioned were really good. Disintegrate was totally a thing that would have worked. Although if you had done that, his spirit would have escaped the body. The body would have been destroyed, but the spirit would have escaped off into somewhere else. You talked about incapacitation and whole person, all that kind of stuff. That would not have helped. It would not have dropped his rage.
Oh.
The one I was waiting for was banishment of any kind, because I was like, okay, banishment is really cool because of the whole sub rule in banishment about where it sends you depending on your origin. And I thought, okay, if they do this and the body is from this plane but the spirit is from this plane of shadow, then it's going to definitely like separate the two, and then it's going to be a whole thing where you've forced them apart by means of a spell. There's a few things. You guys had like maybe 6 or 7 things.
Wait, incapacitate wouldn't have worked?
No. Incapacitation works with regular barbarians because that stops their rage. His rage never stops, even if he's incapacitated. He's in a state of eternal rage because I told Mike 2 years ago when he died originally, and he was playing. You guys were in Caspier, and he had just had the realization that he wasn't able to dream, and he was kind of like sitting down and not quite meditating, but kind of like contemplating on himself and how he felt. And I told him then and there, I said, you are basically a snapshot of yourself in the moment of death. You are so angry all the time. You will never know peace. You will never know satisfaction, because in that moment, you wanted to kill the people attacking you, and you were raging while you did it. And all you will ever be is someone who is raging and someone who wants to kill.
I have a question. At any point between removing the only flaw Zealot Barb has and giving him 2 extra legendary resistances, do you think, geez, this is a bit much?
No. Not even once.
Because, like, we very nearly died. Only for the fact that Arkham made that charm for Frost, is the reason why someone didn't die. That's the only reason,
Yeah, and I put you up against a Steel Predator as well in the same fight. And I only had that idea like 2 or 3 weeks earlier when you fought him previously, and Gavin left his Steel Defender behind, his Artificer Steel Defender behind. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to use that. I'm going to use the bits he leaves behind.
Yeah.
And I just thought it'd be really fun to like go, hey, what if like you had to fight your own like broken down?
No, that is absolutely in character for them to do. And like it was a really fun thing, but Jesus, taking away making him not be able to be incapped is a bit much, I think.
Well, I made sure that there was I never thought that was
because Gav can do that banishing smite once.
Yes.
Yeah. So we had 1 chance to kill him.
I also knew, and I didn't plan, but it actually ended up working out really well. Is that at least Patara had banishment on her as a spell, and actually you guys asked me like the day before or 2 days before to see her spell list, and I sent it to you, and I thought, I didn't realize
she wasn't involved in that fight though.
She wasn't, but she was in the castle. You guys ran into her in the castle when you were in the mountain.
Yeah, I know, I remember.
Yeah, so like I put her there on the off chance that you guys might be like, hey, we need to like kill the big guy here. Will you come and help us? And if you had asked her, that would have been yet another way. So there was quite a few methods you could have used to kill or destroy Cesarac. You also befriended a fiend who knew Disintegrate as a spell.
I never used it. Never once used it.
Okay, here's the thing.
We met this NPC, right? For reference, anyone listening, we met this NPC who was like, I'll disintegrate Anton. I'm a demon. I'll disintegrate everything. Man, you know me? Disintegrate's my middle name. He never cast disintegrate the entire time we were with him.
Let me say this to you. I did say he has one use of disintegrate, or one or two, I forget. But either way, let me ask you this. What's the kind of interesting fact about disintegrate that most other high-level damaging spells don't do?
It's an insta-kill if it reduces you to 0 because it turns the body into dust.
That is one, but what's the other thing about the damage?
It's force.
Yeah, disintegrate is
plus 40.
It's all or none. If you fail on it, if you succeed, you take no damage. It misses you and you take no damage.
Yes.
He was holding on to it until Wabu was low enough on health. That because if I just used it early in the fight, that wouldn't be fair. Because I know that if he uses it and Wabu takes the damage or not, it's not gonna turn him to dust. So he was hanging on to it because he knows that I need to make sure this thing counts. And I also knew as a DM that he had a bunch more legendary resistances left, and I needed you guys to whittle them down so that then he had his opening.
Right.
So I was waiting for you guys to also just. I think you got like 3 or 4 of his legendaries were down.
We got 3.
Yeah. I had my notebook around somewhere, but anyway, yeah. I didn't use it for that exact reason because it would have been a waste, and I knew it would have been a waste. So right. I was waiting for you guys to sufficiently weaken him so that narratively I would have been like, you guys wore him down enough. And then Censorat saw that and saw this is my opportunity. He's weakened, he's vulnerable, and then swooped in and done it. But you guys would have earned him the opportunity to cast that.
Right.
Yeah, and even then, that was like Wabu. It's a dex save, and he has advantage on dex saves, and he has a +8 because barbarian. So even then, that could have been a miss as well.
Barbs don't get proficiency in dex saves, by the way.
Why does he have proficiency in dex saves?
I meant to say it when you said that because barbs only get strength and con. They get advantage on dex saves from danger sense, but they don't get any. They don't get any proficiency.
I didn't give him advantage on the dex saves. I just gave him proficiency instead to make it simpler. And
but he's got magic advantage, so is he advantage on the save anyway?
Oh yes, you would have. Yeah, I didn't realize that I doubled up on that by accident. Look, it didn't come up. It didn't come up, right?
Oh yeah, sure.
But yeah, so that was a crazy fight, and that has basically ended the main arc, which honestly wasn't even really the main arc I planned for this campaign. But when Wabu accidentally got killed, and then you guys ended up creating an undead duplicate of him, I'm like, that's way more compelling of a bad guy than anything I could come up with. So that's so much more fun. So let's have Wabu's arc be to hunt down his evil undead self. And now you guys are going into what I'm considering kind of the epilogue of the campaign, where it is.
So wait, are we never fighting Strauss?
Not in this campaign.
I'm gonna have an aneurysm. I'm like, I've been waiting to kill that character for like a year and a half.
Yeah, here's the thing. I was going to make it part of this whole thing, but then I just thought like I thought it's way more engaging for you guys who have met the Cesarak a bunch of times. Because like you met Strauss at the start of the campaign, but then you never met him for like the whole midsection from levels 5 to like actually from 5 onwards. You guys never interacted with him, whereas you ran into the Cesarak like 2 or 3 times throughout the campaign, each of which times he like either almost killed someone or only narrowly escaped, and that to me builds tension for the bad guy. That when you finally get the Cesarak, that's the moment. That's the satisfying moment. Whereas Strauss became more of a pulling strings in the background kind of guy.
Yeah, that's what I expected when the giant floating necromancer fortress came in. It's grand. I'll just remove that. I'm just going to go and remove that from my goals list on my sheet.
I do apologize. I honestly thought that might end up being a thing where like there might be some disappointment around that, but I was hoping that the killing of Cesarak and stuff like that might be sufficiently a sufficient alternative.
I won't lie, I'm a bit sickened. But
there will be chances, and I'll make sure you're part of whatever campaign is about killing for your own, if not your character's satisfaction, your own satisfaction.
I will believe it when I see it, Connor. Oh god.
Strauss is again also like he went down a different path I did not expect as well, which ended up like there was a whole thing. We could totally do a breakdown with if we got Gav back onto the podcast maybe, and you guys could just throw questions at me and I could explain why certain things worked out the way they did in terms of the campaign.
Yeah, that would be about
like a deconstruction. That could be interesting.
Yeah, it could be fun, alright.
But yeah, you guys are now going into the final 3 or 4, probably 4 sessions that are the epilogue essentially. But they are going to. There will be some dramatic wrap ups in this campaign. We were talking about we were talking about Dan the other night. This is going to kind of center around Dan and his cult, his occult kind of dealings and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And we were talking about it the other night because with Gavin, and Dan was like, "Yeah, Conor has this habit of me giving him a sort of edgy backstory and him making it the most depressing thing in the world."
Dan is so much the Liam O'Brien of our group; it's not even funny.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, so like he was talking about last campaign where like there was a whole thing where his dad died.
One of the main
he had to kill his own dad.
Yeah,
and his mom
he assisted suicide at his mom.
Basically, yeah. I was trying to find a way to not say that so bluntly, but yeah, that's pretty much what happened. And then his friend who he went there to save ended up having been dead the whole time, and when she was asking him through visions to save her, she was referring to like my soul is bound here, help me move on.
Yeah.
And it was kind of bittersweet because he's like she's like, you did save me, but he was like, not the way I wanted to. And I remember Dan actually shedding tears at the table, and that was a really heavy session.
Very, very quiet very quickly.
Yeah, but he was talking about that and saying it to Gavin, and I was like, "Oh, Dan, get ready because this campaign isn't going to be any better for you." I very much have plans for that. We've been talking a lot about stuff. I suppose we have a lot of catch up to do, and realistically, what we are going to talk about today, Martin, I feel like at least 20 other bigger YouTubers have talked about a dozen times over.
So many people have done so many very, very good videos about it. As a shorthand to that, I would say go to Ginny D's channel, Ginny D's channel rather. She has
It's Ginny D, no?
Ginny D. Oh, sorry. I started saying when I saw it written down, I said Ginny Di, and my brain just refused to say it any other way. Yeah, if you go to her channel, she's got like a 2-minute video where basically she goes, what we're about to say here is a lot of people have done much better videos than the one we're going to do about this, but a lot more information with guidance from lawyers and like links to Hasbro employees and stuff like that, or rather Wizards employees who are leaking this kind of stuff. It's like a 2-minute video. If you go into it, she basically just gives a rundown of all the videos that she has linked in her in the description of that video, and they're from various different people. She kind of gives you like a timeline to go through of these videos to watch in order if you want to. Some of them are quite long. There's a very, very, very good one though from Mark Humes that's about 35 minutes long.
I was going to suggest that one.
Thoroughly excellent. There's also a number of videos from D&D shorts that are really good, and then Rules Lawyer as well has done a very, very good video on the legal ramifications of the new OGL. Legal has also done one.
Sorry, what?
Legal has also done one, but members of the community have pointed out that his analysis lacks the critical aspect of he has no clue how writing a 5e adventure goes, and how many like actual like trademarkable, copyrightable like D&D mechanics you have to include in the text when you write for a 5th edition. Like even if you make a magic item to just knock someone down, you have to include the prone condition in that description. You have to include prone, and prone is a specific D&D mechanic. So and if you see that going around, still watch it. There's lots of good stuff in there. There's a couple of mistakes in there and some things I wish you rather wouldn't have said. But I would highly recommend Rules Lawyer's video on it. It's a lengthy one as well, but it really goes into it and gives the ins and outs really well.
Does Rules Lawyer refer specifically in correct parts of Legal Eagles video?
I don't. I don't believe he specifically goes. It plays a clip and goes, this bit is wrong. Plays a clip and goes. I think he gives it like a general overview of the issues with his analysis of the situation.
Okay, fair enough.
Which I would actually say watch both if you have the time. But there's a lot of content currently going around about OGL, and it's been going on for so long, and it's such a, I would call it an incredibly disheartening topic to talk about.
Yeah, it hasn't been a great couple of weeks for the community at all. There's been a lot of, from my perception, it's a lot of like corporate greed
Oh,
mixed with dishonesty and bad PR, and just in general, like a horrible mishandling of the whole situation. I feel like what has happened has been like, here's a thing that we're going to try to sneakily insert, and because it was trying to be sneaky, people reacted adversely instead of being just like, hey, what do you think it is? And people might have gone, we don't like that. Okay, let's try something new. Because of the lack of transparency, it just got what's the word? Stoked way too big of a flame. And people were really angry, and then like there was a lot of silence for a long time, which only let people stew and get angrier.
And then the leaks came before the official statement, and we all heard straight from a WotC employee's mouth that the higher ups just think of us as barriers between them and their money, and that's what really lit a fire under the community.
Yeah. That's so. Okay, we'll jump in. First, actually, what I was going to say a second ago is I when it comes to D&D shorts, I consider him to be the wacky British guy with a big beard who makes silly D&D videos. But he has some ins, man, because he's been one of the first people to post on anything, and it would seem as though he has or knows some people who are like providing these leaks to him.
I think just like he was from the very beginning. He's been one of the very vocal voices in the community against the OGL, and has constantly and constantly putting out videos. On every couple of days he puts out a new video, and I think like it was him and a number of other D&D like big voices in the D&D content creation space on YouTube that were contacted by like WotC employees who leaked the proposed drafts of the new of the OGL and stuff, and exactly what was going on, and kind of explained to and is basically the origin of the D&D Begone hashtag. Because he's the one who was, or I say he, but they're the person that like leaked the stuff to D&D shorts and explained that like, they don't care about whatever said on social media or anything. They expect it all to blow over. The only thing they really look at is D&D Beyond subscriptions, because that's their quickest financial metrics. And I believe I could be wrong. It's probably bigger now again, but as of like last week or the week before, they had like something like 40,000 tickets in their support system requesting the cancellation of their D&D Beyond subscription, and it's still going.
So let's try to approach this a little bit chronologically. Okay. Just to add a bit of backstory. I'm sure people who are like watching this, if anyone's watching this, I'm sure they have some insight or some knowledge of what's happening anyway. But basically, when it comes to Dungeons and Dragons and Wizards of the Coast, who are the ownership, who own the rights to the game, in the 2000s there was an OGL, an open game license that was created. It was designed to allow third-party companies and creators to make content for the game, without infringing on copyright or being, issued cease and desist or whatever. Basically said, if you want to make content or your own adventures or your own monsters, your own classes or whatever it is, but within the framework of our game, that's totally fine with us. It was designed very specifically to be irrevocable and continuous, that it would just be made and then forgotten about and just kind of persist eternally thereafter. This was actually made specifically by a lot of former employees of Wizards of the Coast. Those employees have since gone on to found Paizo, a competitive competing. A competitor company, who of course are responsible for Pathfinder, which is a similar game in many ways to D&D, and probably up until the last week, probably not as popular, but a lot of people are looking at Paizo now.
Well, depending on what happens in the next couple of weeks, it could be the new top dog.
Yep, very much so. And I mean, from what there's been a lot of videos coming out about Pathfinder 2e and talking about that. And honestly, the mechanics I'm hearing sound pretty damn good. I've not taken too much of a look at Pathfinder before, mostly because I had D&D and that was kind of my main thing. But now that I'm finishing a D&D campaign and everything, I might look into Pathfinder potentially. So basically it makes the framework of the game freely available to people so that the community can kind of perpetuate the hobby. And it's not all on the shoulders of Wizards of the Coast to maintain and continuously publish. Mark Hughes raises the point in his video that it's not feasible because there's so much work that goes into writing and getting art for and printing and distributing any book and any adventure or supplementary book to.
They also just don't make money on adventures.
They don't, no. So what they wanted to do was to have the hobby. Basically, if they offer the kind of core rules and then go, oh, but you guys can write and publish your own adventures. of course, third parties are going to do that, and then the hobby kind of perpetuates itself after a point. You're basically teaching the community to fish rather than just handing them a fish.
Well, and at that point, it's more like, I don't want to build this house, but I know someone else who will build this house with these bricks I've bought.
Yeah, basically, yeah. So you're giving them, I suppose, okay, different metaphor. You're an architect selling architectural plans, but you're also saying, hey, you can add a conservatory if you want. Does that work better?
It's more like you're just a really lazy builder, and there's a pile of bricks there and all the bits you need to make a house. But that house won't make you as much money as if you just like sell a new shower unit. So you're just like, you know what? Someone else can. I have the materials, but someone else can build this, and I don't have to do that. And then I can focus on the stuff that actually makes me money. That's basically been Wizards' attitude towards like third-party content, third-party adventures for the majority of the life cycle of 5e.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I mean, to be fair, it's been a fairly mutually beneficial situation up until now, because I would say that like the open gaming license as it has existed is in large part, I would say majority part, responsible for the size and popularity of the D&D community. Without such a license like this, things like Critical Role and other streaming shows and other like third-party companies like Drakkenheim is one of the really popular ones, and what is it? A source book I'm always looking at. All the Tome of Beasts stuff that Kobold Press do.
DM's Guild, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and so allowing for your community to contribute creatively and feed into the hobby is in no small part the reason why the community is as big and as popular as it is. So that's pretty much how it's gone for the past few years. And again, we've been on a pretty steady incline the entire time. Everyone's having a good time. Wizards are making money. The community is happy and getting loads of content. Third-party creators are creating content and making a living off of this. And then 2023 rolls around, and a few people actually it was late late last year, wasn't it?
It was I think it was like the 28th or something. It was basically on the like that period of time during the holiday period where like people just don't really know what time is,
where people aren't reading their emails.
Yeah, where people are basically just kind of slobbing out, going full goblin mode.
Yeah,
like that's the word was the phrase of 2022, by the way, goblin mode.
Yeah, and basically Wizards didn't so much announce as they did slyly slide across the internet's table the OGL 1.1 to a number of third-party content creators, along with an NDA that they had to sign before reading it.
And they had 7 days to sign it originally. They had 7 days to entirely change their business practices.
Yeah, they were given very, very little time to... They basically said, hey, look, you need to like agree to this within these few days, or else because these things are going to apply to you, and you need, or otherwise you won't be able to continue with this. Originally, the OGL was like, it was telling people you need to report all of your financial income if it's related to D&D related. You also have to pay royalties when you earn over $750,000 a year.
That's in revenue as well, which is really key, not profit.
Yes,
so
not
like
profit,
revenue. That's your total gross.
Yeah,
which is pretty messed up.
Yes, there was also some parts in there about how if you do publish stuff that is D&D, when you publish it, as long as if you're publishing it within the framework of D&D, it then belongs to Wizards of the Coast, and they can choose to take your content you created and published, and then you reuse it on their own products and take that elsewhere.
It was a perpetual right to take anything that you had made and sell it wholesale without any changes on as a Wizards product, without ever acknowledging, crediting, or compensating you for the work you did.
So like I said, this came out as a behind an NDA, so they were it very much like, here's the thing, if they were confident in how this would have been received, there would have been no need for the NDA.
Well, see, like, this was never set up by the people who actually understand how the community works. Like, one thing that has become like super apparent over the last while is that the people who actually understand D&D and actually love D&D and like want to see it succeed and want to see it remain as this like open, great space for creation and community and collaboration, like D&D is intended to be. Those people, the likes of Jeremy Crawford, Chris Perkins, that kind of stuff, they're not involved in these decisions. These decisions are handed down to them, and they just have to grin and bear it. Like,
this is very much, like I said at the start, this is very much corporate greed on the part of Hasbro executives deciding, hey, you don't earn enough money, make more money, please.
They describe
minus the please part.
D&D Beyond is, I believe it was woefully undermonetized, is the phrase.
That came out late last year, like November or something, I think.
That was the first red flag for me, because I work in the video game industry, and I've heard stuff like that a lot from various different companies, and it's never a good sign.
No.
Like as soon as anyone starts to hyper focus on the monetization to the not the opposite of benefit, detriment. To the detriment of your player base, who actually got you the market. Like currently D&D has an 85% market share. I'm not getting super corporate and businessy about this, but it's a good way to explain it. They currently have an 85% market share in the TTRPG space, which means that 85% of people who play TTPRGs are playing either D&D or using something from the D&D like house of like books and stuff and stuff like that as thing, right? And they only got that way because of the OGL. Because if you talk to people who've been playing D&D longer than myself and Conor, because me and Conor only came in 5th edition because 5th edition was so open and welcoming, and there were so many exciting new things, and it was so easy to run. People will tell you that this happened before. In 3rd edition there was an open license. I believe that's actually where the OGL came from. I think that was around 2000 is when
that was yes, because the people who created 3rd edition or
went off to do Pathfinder
when 3rd edition was created, they went on to become Pathfinder, and that became your
Paizo.
3.5 system, and Paizo and everything.
So prior to that, in 3rd edition was open, and then as Conor said, 4th edition came in, and like what they're kind of doing, it's weird, someone pointed this out, it seems to be all of the even number editions of D&D just suck ass.
It's a cyclical pattern,
but it's just cyclical thing of corporate business, where like the C-suite, like CEO, COO, all that kind of stuff changes, then they go, oh well, clearly, like what I find particularly mind-boggling is that during the pandemic, D&D was one of the highest grossing properties in the world, because so many people needed something to do, and D&D is made for something like a pandemic where you can't go out and see each other virtually, but you can interact and exist in a better world than the one that was currently existing. But they
reality temporarily at least.
They got that market share because of the OGL and 5e, and how open 5e was, and how easy 5e was to work with specifically, and things like the GM's Guild, and I'm trying to think of like other, like GM's Guild, Patreon, all that kind of stuff. Like most of your big D&D creators have a Patreon where they create like exclusive content. I know XP's Level 3 does it, and Jacob from that, I know he does that. Mark Humes does it. I've actually subscribed to his Patreon for a little bit just so I could get some of those homebrews. They're very, very good. There's people who like that's their entire livelihood, the likes of the Griffin Saddlebag, who's a huge content creator, and all they do is make items and stuff, and I would say they're very, very good at their job. But all that stuff is the reason why D&D is popular. Like D&D is a good system. Anyone who can look at it objectively will tell you that 5e is at least a decent system to play, specifically D&D in. But it's like a lot of people will say there are a lot of better systems out there that do what D&D does and better. But D&D is still top because D&D had the most social credit. It had the most like fan trust. It had the biggest audience, and that continued to grow then over like the pandemic, the last 10 years, like with like the rise of Twitch and live streaming and all that. D&D grew to the position it's in because of the community, not because of the corporate suite. Like that is the reason why D&D is where it is. And now there's people in that corporate suite who have no idea how the community or the game works, or how it react, or what's best for the community or best for the game. They only know what's best for their wallet, and this is where the problem lies.
I think if I put enough time in, probably more than I'm willing to do on this podcast, I could draw a pretty stark comparison between Irish landowners and British colonizers.
Do you mean absentee landlords?
Yes, and how
I can do it in about 5 minutes.
Cultivated and owned, and crops were grown by the Irish people, and then the C-suite are basically the British landowners that came in and took them and then rented them back to the Irish people who've been working them for centuries.
Also,
it's basically that they want to kind of like they've allowed it to be open and free, and now they're coming to reap what they've sown. Except the thing is, they haven't sown it; the community has. they've just given them the green light to do it. And now they're like, hey, all that money you've been making, how about you just give a nice, like, big chunk of that to us, please?
Making an even better analogy, the absentee landlords are so called because they never set foot in Ireland.
Yeah. They just buy the land.
So and again, literally, we're never part of the community, but profit off it, and then try to choke it to death. I
challenge Hasbro to show me one executive who has rolled a dice in his life.
Not like poker. Don't do dice.
Oh yeah, those guys definitely.
You don't use dice in poker. Sorry.
No, you do for like craps or
craps.
Do you doing blackjack as well? I don't know.
No, blackjack.
I went to Vegas once and I lost some money.
Blackjack is just the first one to get 21 on the cards.
Oh, it is. What's the one where they have the roulette? I'm thinking of roulette.
Roulette is the ball.
But there's dice in roulette as well, no?
I have never been in a casino, so I couldn't tell you.
Again, I was there once and I lost some money, so let's not talk about it. Okay, so basically, this thing came out. It was under NDA. Interesting thing about this, and this is something they tried to backtrack later, which was very much not the case, because there was actual lawyers looking at this on online and stuff and giving their opinions, and the way that this was presented and put out to these third-party creators, along with an NDA and an agreement that they had to sign within a certain time frame and everything. This was a done product. This was something they were like, yeah, here's the thing, it's done, you sign it now. But they tried to backtrack it later by saying that this was only a draft and that they were looking for feedback.
Yeah.
And there's no evidence to show that this was a draft or that this was only partially complete or anything like that. This was a done product as far as the Wizards and Hasbro were concerned. And they were pushing it out to community, expecting people to sign the dotted line like they were told.
Yeah, what everyone who saw that says. Because, like, it's harder to see through windows than it is that fucking statement. Everyone who saw that was just like, no, you do not send a fucking draft out with a contract.
Yeah. So that happened. This all really so like we said, for the last few months, there's been kind of hints at this. There was that leak about the Hasbro executives talking about D&D being woefully under monetized and stuff like that, which is just
that wasn't even
a garbage person.
That wasn't even a leak. That was a public statement to D&D shareholders during their fireside chat with investors. That was a public statement. That wasn't even a leak.
Wow.
Yeah.
If anything, between that and between the executives kind of viewing the fan base, so basically this kind of kicked off or came to a head publicly and really got some momentum and some steam when Linda Codega, who's a journalist, published an article about all of the leaks and kind of compiled all the information.
Two or three, I think it's the Gizmodo articles, right?
I'd have to double check now.
I think it is. Do you know what? I'll check it out.
My notes are woefully incomplete, Martin.
I'm pretty sure that is who did it. I'm just pulling up the Gizmodo articles. Hilariously, the first result if you type Gizmodo into Google is Gizmodo OGL. That's how big these.
That's how big this got. Yeah. This got so big it reached outside the D&D community.
Mate,
there was mainstream.
Moist Critical made a video on this. Like
I know Philip DeFranco made a video on this.
Linus Tech Tips made two, like not once but twice mentioned it in his massive live stream podcast that he does every. It was on like every Thursday or Friday, I think, and then made two separate clip videos from those podcasts, both about them. If any, I'm sure a lot of you guys, if you're in this sphere of YouTube, are probably aware of Linus Tech Tips. But he's basically like the biggest tech YouTuber on YouTube, I would say, or like the most if not the biggest, I would say probably like the most respected.
I would say definitely. I would say he's probably the biggest. But there's a lot of other ones, but I feel like because he has more than just his tech stuff. He has like gaming and other side stuff that he does as part of the same brand as well.
So I have so he has a clips channel for his podcast, right? So I out of curiosity, I'm just pulling up here just to show the scale it's gotten to. And like, if any of you don't know Moist Critical, he's literally one of the most subscribed channels on YouTube. There's like loads of commentary, and he's also known as Penguin Zero, or Penguins O. If you look him up, like you absolutely know who he is. He's a guy with like long black hair, pale black beard, always wears the same white shirt, and he kind of talks in a very slow, deep voice, kind of like this. My Moist Critical impression is terrible. I apologize, But like so many really really big. I think those videos are each over 1 million.
I do know this guy.
Yeah, everyone who's on YouTube knows Moist Critical because he's just everywhere.
I'm just saying.
Yeah. No, I'm not saying like I wasn't giving out. I was just saying like he's huge. Like, and for him to make a video like that, particularly about D&D, because he also made one on the Magic the Gathering 30th anniversary scandal that is also Hasbro's fault.
Yeah, I'm not really paying too much attention to the other Hasbro related stuff, but I know that there's people were pissed off about Transformers and also Nerf for some reason.
It was Magic. I think Magic was particularly bad. I think it was something crazy, like you had to pay like $300+ for like a booster pack of like, or like the fat packs of like the Magic the Gathering 30th anniversary special cards. Like they did like a card on it. But I'm just looking at the Lioness Tech Tips video now. Got 195k views on a video entitled "Angering Nerds is a Bad Idea," and it's got Dungeons and Dragons plastered right over it. It's 5 minutes and 10. He did another follow-up video. Yeah, D&D cast Damage Control 4 days ago, which has 162k views. And like, this is a tech channel. Like, these aren't like, the majority of his audience probably isn't really going to care about Dungeons and Dragons. You know, I say there's some.
I think the same thing about Philip DeFranco as well, though. Like he does kind of more he has celebrity news, some politics and stuff. But like this would be kind of like somewhat not within the wheelhouse of something he would cover in my mind. But when I saw he had a video about it, I was like, that's crazy that it's hitting these other media outlets, you know.
The book YouTuber Daniel Green also has mentioned it twice now on his fantasy news stuff, which is a massive series. I'm just looking at his channel now. I really hope he doesn't have an intro video that plays. But he currently has 2 videos where he mentions the D&D situation. I think. Just look, there might
basically this has hit a very wide audience, wider than the standard D&D community anyway. So
absolutely huge.
The article gained some real speed. I think the community responded.
She had like 3 articles that are all excellent.
Yeah. The community has responded, and it's that those articles really help bring it to like a very forward kind of light, so people were far more aware of it now, and also it compiled the information. Up until this point, it had been a lot of like individual little snippets of and hints of things that were going on. It was very, very solid once the articles came out.
The Guardian also did a newspaper article about it and like quoted D&D shorts in it.
Yeah. So basically, it all came out. For a while, and like when I say a while, it wasn't really that long. It was a few days, but it felt like a long bloody time. There was no response, and then Wizards were meant to have on the 13th, was it, or the 12th?
It was Friday the 13th. They were going to release their original launch. Yeah.
They had it up on their Twitch. They had a scheduled broadcast up on their Twitch, and they were meant to talk about it. But this broke like a few days beforehand, and because it had come out, things had gotten so in this meantime, so between the time that it broke and the time that they were meant to have this thing, Ginny D, other D&D YouTuber, had a tweet about unsubbing from D&D Beyond to get the attention of Hasbro, because it had also come out that the Hasbro executives only care about monetization and the D&D subs and what they're getting back money-wise. So Ginny T, honestly, from my perspective, and maybe there's other contributing factors here as well, from my perspective, she's like, maybe we should all unsubscribe from D&D Beyond. And then thousands of people unsubscribed from D&D Beyond.
It was being pushed extremely heavily by both Nerd Immersion and D&D Shorts as well. Like every single video they made in that time frame, they were like, cancel your sub, because it was D&D Shorts that the first indication of what we were doing, that what people were doing was working, that we got, because he got that email from the WotC employee who was like, yeah, cancelling the D&D Beyond subscriptions is what you need to do because it's the quickest financial info they have, and all of their plans for monetization center on D&D Beyond.
Yeah. So that it turned into a waterfall of cancellations, to the point where the site crashed because so many people were trying to unsubscribe. It was giving up an error and everything. And they had like a backdate queue of like a few thousand long of people trying to undo the subscription, but the system like couldn't get through them fast enough.
Last I heard, it was a 5-digit email queue.
There you go. And basically, so after that, this happened on maybe like the 12th or something like that, 11th or 12th, and then on it happened on the 11th or 12th, and on the 12th they cancel their Friday the 13th announcements on Twitch that they're meant to have, and they go silent for like a few days.
It was close to a week, I want to say.
It was far too long, right? Then they release. Actually, no. Here we go. No, actually, it was on the 13th that they published this instead of the thing. So they go.
Oh,
they go quiet.
That's our like PR statement, though, isn't it? They were actually had nothing.
Yes. Basically, so it was meant to have a stream, and they were meant to talk about the OGL and a bunch of other stuff, and kind of like clear up some stuff like that. But this has come out that like, no, this is internal information saying that Hasbro is very greedy and wants to monetize you, blah, blah, blah. And then with all the wave of unsubs, they cancel the stream and they release this instead on January 13th. It's basically a lot of PR speak about how
this is the one with that line, isn't it?
I have it quoted here. I'm going to read it in a second. Okay?
I hate that line so much.
So the whole thing is about how there's been a misunderstanding. Okay. I won't go into it too deeply, but the overall impression of the whole article is, okay, everyone slow down. There's been a bit of a misunderstanding here. At no point do they say sorry or that they were wrong.
It's extremely patronizing.
Yeah, oh, very much. It's the most like, you are dumb people. Yeah. We are smart business people. You listen to us. It's incredibly insulting. The worst line of it, and the thing that like broke me so. Here's the thing. I'm a generally like pretty okay passive person. I don't get irritated too easily, but this set me off. They said, so they said a whole bunch of stuff, and then they said, you're going to hear people say that they won and we lost, because making your voices heard forced us to change our plans. Those people will only be half right. They won, and so did we. And I'm just like, it's I don't know.
Do you know what annoyed me more? And like this is speaking to someone who has a goddamn degree in English, right? Like, what annoyed me?
You don't need a degree. You just need to know how to speak any language to know how to not be an asshole when you make a public statement.
I have a very small amount of social media training from a previous job I used to do, and even with that minuscule amount, which was just answering questions on Twitter, with that minuscule amount of PR training that I've had, that social media training I've, do you know what I wouldn't have put in my first article addressing a massive controversy in my community that I'm already on the losing side of? I wouldn't have put, we won and so did you. What annoys me more than that is not that the person who wrote that couldn't see how that would come off. It is that the person who wrote that and the 4 people who would have read that before it went to print also okayed it.
That's the thing, because no one just wrote this on a whim, right?
This was written with lawyers. Like,
absolutely, there's going to be so much oversight on how this is written and so many corrections, and no one caught they won, but so did we, because it's so small. It is so small to be like, well, we both won. How do you like that?
Yeah, it's incredibly passive aggressive. It's incredibly passive aggressive. It's of a level with like, you leave a bowl in the sink and your housemate takes the bowl out of the sink, puts a note in it going, wash your dishes, leaves it in front of your door, knocks on your door and runs away. That's the level of passive aggressive it is.
Did this happen to you, Martin?
No, but I know people that has happened to. Okay. No, I'm an incredibly good housemate. I clean everything. I keep all my mess in my room.
So that happened anyway. I just remember reading comments on or like replies on also, and I don't know how intentional this was, but I mean, given the like snarky level of passive aggressiveness that accompanied that article, the art that appears above
the magic card.
It's the counter spell.
It's not
artwork.
It's not counter spell.
Is it not?
No, it's even worse. I need to pull it up because I didn't get it because I only played Magic for a very brief amount of time. But apparently, if you are like a dedicated Magic player, like the way we are with D&D, you can clock that artwork immediately, and it's basically a really subtle fuck you. Well, not so subtle because they're wizards and there's crossover between the Magic. OGL.
It's as if they didn't know that nerds might play more than one game.
Where is it? I'm so annoyed. It's basically a magic card, and I can't remember exactly which magic card it is, but effectively, it's basically like a spell card that says like tough shit. It's like a spell card that says like tough shit, we're doing it our way. That's basically the title of the thing. I'm so annoyed. D&D OGL background magic card.
Okay, you see if you can find it.
I will, because it's just another really clear indication that either no thought was given or they're deliberately doing this. You keep going. I'll try and find it.
Okay. So that was the kind of, basically, if you wanted to sum up this whole statement, that line there where they're like, you're gonna hear some people say that we lost, but we didn't because you guys won, but also we did. That's basically the entire like tone of that first post. So that was that. Obviously, people lost their goddamn minds. Are you playing a video right now?
No, sorry. I'm just looking through. I'm looking through articles and stuff because I can't find the exact one. But it's like there's a specific card they chose, and the card they chose is essentially just like a subtle fuck you.
Yeah, it's like something about like a counter attack or a counter spell or something to that effect.
It's essentially it's the equivalent of Crawford responding to your tweet rules is written. That's the effective like attitude of it.
Yeah, it's not good. It's not good. So that's kind of whole tone of that first article, right? Then that was the 13th, so it would have been Tuesday, I guess, as this was posted.
Yeah.
It just says 3 days ago on my thing here. And it says a working conversation. So this is by Kyle Brink. And Kyle Brink is the executive producer of D&D. So he's basically overseeing the team.
He's a dev.
Yeah. That is an important factor. This man is a dev, whereas and I don't know because the other article is just posted by D&D Beyond staff is all it says. So it's a general one like that. Whereas this one is specifically by Kyle Brink. So he posts this article. I'll go into a few details here about stuff that they do want to include in the OGL, but basically he does walk some stuff back.
I believe it's the royalties and the license back stuff that he immediately said that's gone.
Yeah, so this article comes across far more empathetic, far more human, unlike the corporate robots that probably wrote the previous one.
I believe there was some information going around either from a leak or something that initial statement with, we both won. I believe I saw some stuff going on Twitter. I don't know how verifiable it is, but I believe that initially basically they were saying that basically just went C-suite lawyers, C-suite out. Like that didn't go through any PR teams, that didn't go through the dev team, that didn't go through community, didn't go through anyone who would actually understand the situation and be able to not include that incredibly inflammatory phrase in it.
Mm-hmm. So he's basically, again, there's some stuff here he talks about where like I don't fully believe everything he's saying, because he talks about the draft, about it being a draft, and he refers to it as a draft, and stuff like that. And how they want to go forward with a more open and transparent approach to the OGL, where they can, similar to like Unearth Arcanas that we get, for new D&D content.
Yes.
They'll post something out, give us some time to read through it, ask for a survey, and kind of refine it that way. And specifically, and something I was keeping a very close eye out for, the survey won't just have binary answers or whatever, like, did you like this, did you like that? It will have open fields as well that you can enter in your own text and information to offer your own specific feedback, which is something I really wanted, because, I mean, if you're going to control the questions that are being asked in a more binary way, then it's not going to it's going to get them the answers they want, but you're not going to be able to say what you want about it.
The only thing that worries me about this is something that I have seen from further leaks after they announced that they were going to go this way with the OGL, and that was that, and the one D&D playtest. So like the actual like game development team, your Jeremy Crawfords and Chris Parkins, it's just straight up says like they don't read the written feedback. They're too busy to. What they'll do is they just look at the data, the approval disapproval kind of rating, that metric, and they basically entirely ignore anything you actually write in that text box. And it's not true malice. It's not true malice from that team.
It's sheer volume.
It's sheer volume, and that team is understaffed. Because like if you remember, after the first one D&D survey went up, they came out with a video with Todd Kenrick, all trumpets and announcements going, hey, 45,000 of you participated in this.
Yeah.
you know, and it just makes me worry that with the OGL thing and them doing playtests, no, they're calling it a playtest. It's not a playtest. They're basically crowdsourcing their policy, which, you know, good on you for, like, you know, having a team do that and paying them to do that, and them not doing it and then just getting the community to do it for you for free. But yeah, I'm just worried that if they're doing this in a playtesting, that they're just gonna ignore any feedback that we give.
I mean, look, it's entirely possible. I mean, I feel like if so far the response in the community, which normally just sheer outrage, like we were saying, the executives were kind of saying like, oh, we'll just let it blow over. They'll forget about it because they're dumb fans and they don't know anything better. But like the fact that we kind of hit them in the wallet by unsubscribing woke them up, and now it's like, no, we pay you. You know, it's the kind of funny thing, isn't it, about like how payment models are going, because when you think about it, you go back 15-20 years, you had to buy things once and that was it.
Yeah.
And you could choose to not support that company anymore, but it's like, yeah, but you already bought the thing. Whereas now, because of these live service models, they're more profitable for businesses, but also they hold businesses more accountable to their customers, because customers just go, oh, I don't like that policy, I'm going to unsubscribe.
What's nuts is that most of the time when companies do stuff as a live service, they make such a meal of it, and they do it so badly because they're just focused on wringing as much money as possible out of someone. Marvel's The Avengers, which is shutting down.
Oh, that's the Square Enix one?
Yeah. I actually tweeted about this earlier today because I saw the article only today saying that's shutting down, and was like, at the time that they got that license, that was very, very possibly the biggest media franchise in the world. Like,
it was around the time Endgame had dropped. It was so big. Yeah.
They're riding a wave of both fan and critical acclaim, like billion-dollar franchise. They were given the full rights to that. And they could have made that really, really good. And from what I understand in watching, because I'm into video games, watching documentaries on stuff like that and behind the scenes, the creative people really wanted to make a great game, and the bits of that game that are actually any fun to play are because it was people. The rest of it was just ruined by microtransactions. By who? The monetization team. And you can really, really see that with D&D Beyond, that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to squeeze monetization and microtransactions in there as much as they can to try and exploit you as much as they can, because we are woefully under-monetized.
But this is the thing, though. Like, I think, again, okay, here's the problem with any time you have like a group of suits that are trying to monetize something, their business heads trying to make their business model, their square-shaped business model fit into a round hole of whatever the hobby or thing is they're trying to make money off of, right? And in a lot of cases, they don't understand it. And honestly, if you think you can actually monetize D&D, you're having a laugh. It's a game where you go buy one book and run infinite adventures, and you think
Not
you can
anymore.
make... Well,
have you
but
seen,
I mean, like that.
Like, I'm sure we'll get to subsequent leaks that have come out since, including the plans for D&D Beyond in the future.
Well, I mean, oh yeah, well, we can.
I got so angry when I read that.
But I mean, like that. But like, okay, I mean, in terms of the base game, though, because here's the thing, right? If Call of Duty, right, to talk about another kind of big thing, gaming thing, if Call of Duty turned around tomorrow and said, "Hey, we want you to pay 20 quid a year to play Call of Duty, aside from your Xbox and PlayStation subscription, we want you to pay 20 quid a year to play Call of Duty," they have you.
Yeah,
because if you want to play Call of Duty, you have to pay it.
Warzone with the boys. Thing is,
sorry?
Warzone with the boys isn't going to be the same if you don't pay that 20 quid a month.
Exactly. You know? Who's going to stay up till 2 a.m. with you on a Friday night drinking cans and playing Warzone? I don't do that.
I also don't do that.
But yeah, but I mean, they have you because they control the game from start to finish. And the moment you turn it on to the moment you turn it off, that's them. With D&D, it's entirely different beast that you're dealing with, because it's literally here. You can just pay like, 70, 80 quid, buy a couple of books, and then run literally games for years to come.
Yep.
Like, you know, that you just can't get the same level of money out of D&D as you can, at least not from people playing the game, that you could get out of something like a video game or Netflix or something. Because again, Netflix is the same. You can't just decide, oh, I got Netflix once, now I have it forever. No, you need to keep paying for Netflix in order to keep having access to the movies. But again, and if you decide I don't want the subscription anymore, they're like, that's fine, but we're going to take away your access to the movies. But once you buy the book, they can't take away your access to that. You have the book, and you have the rule set, and you have your imagination, which is 90% of any campaign is your imagination, because the rules are only there to form a framework, and then it's a skeleton. And then you add all the other parts to make that full whole person. This analogy is getting away from me. Okay, sorry. Back to the thing. So this post by Kyle Brink.
Yes.
Some of the key factors that are highlighted in bold, so you know they're important. He says any changes to the OGL going forward will have no impact on underlined at least these creative efforts. Your video content. Whether you're a commentator, streamer, podcaster, live play cast member, or other video creator or platform like YouTube or Twitch or TikTok, you have always been covered by the Wizards fan content policy. The OGL doesn't and won't touch any of this. 2, your accessories your accessories for your own content. No changes to the OGL will affect your ability to sell minis, novels, apparel, dice, or other items related to your creations and characters and worlds. Number 3, non-published works, for instance, contracted services. You use the OGL if you want to publish your works with reference to 5th edition content through the SRD. That means commissioned work, paid DM services, consulting, and so on aren't affected by the OGL. VTT content, any updates to the OGL will still allow any creator to publish content on VTTs and will still allow VTT publishers to use the OGL content on their platform. Next is DM's Guild content. The content you release on DM's Guild is published under the community content agreement with Dungeon Masters Guild. This is not changing. The OGL 1.0A content. Nothing will impact any content you've published under the OGL 1.0A. This will always be licensed under the OGL 1.0A, meaning that stuff you previously published going back, your back catalog will not be affected. Revenue, there will be no royalty or financial reporting requirements, which is a big one, because we know that money is where the value is for them here. And then lastly, your ownership of your content, you will continue to own your content with no license back requirements. So they walked back quite a few big things,
but not the biggest. It is
important to note. Sorry?
But not the biggest.
What's the biggest?
That the OGL is irrevocable.
Yeah. And actually, funnily enough, the people that were involved that are at Paizo now, well, some of them are at Paizo and others I think are elsewhere. They have commented on this, and they are the people who were involved in the conception and writing of the OGL. They have said that when this was designed and made, we designed it with the intent that it would just exist perpetually, not have to be changed or updated, not be altered, not be overridden. It is designed to be a continuous thing that cannot be undone. However, again, more recent quote unquote drafts of the new OGL have stated that they have the right to withdraw or disregard the previous OGL as they move forward into this new version. It looks like they're kind of. Here's the thing. This happened though 2 weeks after all the hubbub happened, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of 2 weeks too late in some regards. I don't think that D&D is going to collapse around us. I think that the hobby will still be there. But I do think that there has been some irreparable damage made to the community and some good faith that Wizards had fairly solid good faith, relatively speaking, compared to some other companies, I suppose, for the past 10 years. That has been lost and may not be recoverable for them. They may just have to accept that they have lost a portion of their fan base. What they've basically done, because 5e, because you mentioned it before, 5e is so accessible and so easy to run. It is the gateway game for a lot of people joining the tabletop community. They're like a wave that has been growing and growing and growing, and they want this wave to crash down in the D&D camp as it draws in more and more people into the hobby. And now it's just crashed straight down and spread out in all directions because there's people fleeing the hobby, going to other companies like Paizo and Cobalt Press and stuff like that.
It's not small people either. Pretty much every D&D content creator that I follow that doesn't have a special contract with Wizards, that definitely doesn't let them disparage the company in any way. These guys who are taking a lot of shit at the moment. they like if Critical Role basically made a statement. So did Jerry Holkins of Acquisitions Incorporated. He was free to make a much more damning statement, and I would highly recommend anyone listening to this to go and read.
I haven't seen that.
There's a Penny Arcade article that Jerry Holkins wrote on the whole OGL situation, and he went fucking in because Ac Inc. finished at the last PAX. Ac Inc. is done. Like, they're not doing any more Ac Inc. stuff.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was the last live Ac Inc. So he's completely free to say whatever the fuck he wants because he's not under a contract. And he went in on the management of it's it's a great article. And like, I'm just saying, like, I'm a big Critical Role fan. They're what got me into D&D. I'm pretty sure they're what got you into D&D as well, Connor. And like, I've seen
that community.
Yeah, I've seen people being like, we should boycott like the Legend of Vox Machina as well as the D&D Honor. Like, if you want to boycott Honor Amongst Thieves, I'm totally with you. I really want to go and see that movie because it's a D&D movie with a budget and a decent cast. But like, if this is still going on, I don't know how I can conscience supporting that. Like, I'll probably just pirate it or something similar. Legend of Vox Machina isn't a D&D product. It's a Critical Role product. These are fans.
Correct.
These are people who love D&D as much as you do and hate what's going on as much as you do. Like, they just can't say it because they'll get sued. And that statement they put out.
If you're ever like wondering whether or not Vox Machina is a D&D product, the ampersand appears nowhere. And also,
what's the name of Pike's deity? What's the name of Pike's deity in the show?
The Everlight, because they can't use Sarenrae.
Yep.
Same thing with the Dawnfather.
Cord, the Stormlord, the god of strength and warfare. He's just the Stormlord. They don't call the Raven Queen the Raven Queen. They call her the Matron of Ravens, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because again, the whole show, if you look at even the spells they cast and the abilities they have and stuff like that, although like if you're watching the show and you're a fan, you'll see Scanlan do his Big B's hand, and
it's called Scanlan's hand. Yeah.
But it's recognizable. You immediately know what it is. But again, they're not using these trademark things from 5e.
Yeah.
So
I couldn't find the magic card, Connor. I'm sorry, but it was something like that's how long I've spent looking for it. I've gone through like 9 articles. But to wrap it up, it was something stated like "Return to Order" was the name of the card, or like.
Something very kind of like
unstoppable edict or something. It was called, like, something like that. Where they were communicating via artwork that like nothing you do is going to stop us from pushing through this. So everyone.
It was very, and I honestly, again, this is how you know that nobody with like any
PR training.
Yeah, looked over this, because any PR person worth their salt would immediately look at this and go, you shouldn't say that, and you definitely shouldn't post this picture above it.
Yeah, what's this artwork and why did you choose it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Sorry to cut you off there, but just to close loop in the podcast.
I do want to say something very, very important, and I think maybe this might be the most important thing we say, right?
Yeah.
Anyone who might be watching this, you and I, the reason we're here, the reason we do this podcast, we really enjoy playing D&D. It's a really fun game. Mm-hmm. Some of the best memories I've had with any friends ever have been made up fantasy memories of us playing heroes and fighting monsters and doing amazing things. It's a great game, and it's a really, really good community. Let's not burn it down.
Yeah.
Let's not burn down the house with us inside it, but let's try and direct our dissatisfaction and our anger at the people responsible for that. D&D does not need to die. The hobby does not need to die. The whole reason that this kind of blew up in the first place was because third-party creators who rely on 5th edition as a game were being basically shoved out the door and told, hey, no, you're actually under much stricter rules now, you need to pay us money, and blah, blah, blah. So they were suffering for this new OGL. It's important that if we don't just cut our losses with D&D, walk away, because then a lot of those third-party content creators are also going to end up out in the cold anyway, because whether it's the OGL squeezing them too tight or us just walking away from them, they get hurt both ways. What we need to do is we need to not give Wizards any more money till they sort their mess out. But there is still a lot of third-party books and content and everything that you can go and buy from Kobold Press and from MCDM and a bunch of other companies, as well as other smaller people on like Patreon and DM's Guild and stuff like that. and you need to support those people, because that's my policy going forward. I'm not buying another D&D book until I'm confident that Wizards has gotten themselves together.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why would I need to? There's hundreds of like homebrew like issues and adventures and new subclasses and magic items and collections and stuff like that I can go to third-party people for all over the place.
You just got Instagram.
Right now,
you just got Instagram.
I would much rather give any of those people my money right now than give anything to Wizards. So that's my stance going forward.
If
let's not burn the house down with us inside. And just as a little added note, when you mentioned the D&D movie there, and maybe I'm wrong on this. This is like an addendum, but we're going to put this in parentheses, and we're going to not necessarily this is part of my main really important statement. I also want to see this movie an awful lot. Yeah. It looks like it could be kind of fun.
I want to see this movie succeed, but not at the expense of D&D as a hobby.
Exactly. But here's my thinking, and I could be wrong on how this works, and I'm obviously not in the film industry or anything, so I don't really know. It would seem as though Wizards and Hasbro are doing this, and I say Wizards, it's the higher ups in Wizards, and it's everyone at Hasbro, because let's be honest, corporate people are monsters. Just play Cyberpunk to 2077, you'll see how monstrous corporate people are.
Yeah, just by looking at all the glitches in
just so what they want to make money off this, right?
Yeah.
Now, like I said a minute ago, you can't really monetize a game that takes place in 4 or 5 people's collective imagination. It's just not feasible. Maybe, again, could be wrong, is it maybe a possibility that if we allow for a D&D movie like this to succeed, and again, I'm not just saying this because I do want to see it, and I do, but I'm happy enough to not see it if I thought it would stick it to Hasbro and stick it to Wizards, you know?
They've only got about a month, because it comes out in March. It comes out on Paddy's Day.
Yeah. So would it be I don't know, a good idea to see the movie and then show Hasbro, hey, look, you just made a successful D&D movie. Maybe that's because like I've thought for a while that like with the structure of a D&D movie, you can make Dungeons and Dragons, Honor Among Thieves, and then in 2 years you could have Dungeons and Dragons, Curse of the Dragon Queen, and then you could have and you could keep doing that and keep swapping out characters. You could have a whole cinematic universe on your hands with a D&D franchise, because you could just go, hey, these 5 characters, they're leaving now, and these other 5 characters are coming in, and they're totally different in a completely different part of the world. But hey, maybe we get a cameo from Chris Pine's Bard character, who walks in the final scene of this one and goes, I'm putting together a team, and he's got an eye patch for some reason.
There was a dream.
So I said maybe that's a possibility. Maybe that's a thing where you can be like, hey, look, Hasbro, cool your boner for money for 5 seconds there, and just think maybe
while we give you a shitload more money for the same product you're ruining.
Well, I'm just thinking like it's not necessarily about that. I mean, maybe showing them, hey, look, there's other avenues you can earn money in. I don't know. Maybe that's too optimistic.
I think that's way too optimistic, pal. I'm sorry. Yeah, okay. No, I think like they've shown that the only language you understand is money, and like the only reason we have a play test for the OGL is because 40 to 50,000 people cancelled their D&D Beyond subscriptions, and even if a subscription costs $1, that's enough. That's 50 grand, right? How much is a yearly sub for D&D Beyond?
I think the earliest one is like 4 or 5 quid. I think the standard one is that.
So like, think about it this way: if the 50,000, all right. So the master tier is $6 a month, right? There's 12.
Yeah, it's $3 for the hero tier.
Yeah.
Then,
so the hero's the lowest tier, right?
Yeah.
So most people who have subs, I would say, the vast majority of them will be dungeon masters, so they're probably going to go for the master tier. So we'll say like $6, right? $6 a month. That's 6 times 12 over a year. That's $72 a year. Yeah, 6 12 72. Times 50,000 is how much money they have lost already.
It's not you asking me. I'm like, oh man, come on, man, it's it's late in the Saturday. I know, right? I haven't got to sit here.
So I just what was it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's $3,600,000 is how much they've lost. If everyone
is that this year, if everyone remains
if all, so from the numbers that I've heard reported being that the queue for an unsubscription, because when you go to cancel your D&D Beyond survey, D&D Beyond sub, you're funneled into a support ticket system where you generate an email going, hey, I want to cancel my sub. Last I heard, that had 50,000 in the queue. So if each of those is a master tier sub and they pay monthly, that's 72 quid a year, times 50,000 is $3,600,000. So that's more than $3.5 million in a month that they lost. Now, to us, that's a lot of money. Into a corporation, it's a little less money. But what it is it's statistically noticeable. Yeah. And that's why we've gotten to where we are. Which is why I think, as much as I want to go to that cinema with my friends and watch the D&D movie and really enjoy it, because it looks like it's going to be really fun, I'm probably not going to go. I'm legitimately probably not going to go. I'm probably going to either wait till it comes out on demand or something similar. Maybe when it goes out on YouTube. Films come up pretty quickly on YouTube. But even then I would be hesitant, because that's still going to support Wizards. Not Wizards rather, but Hasbro. Like I really think that the only way, like if we don't have this resolved by the time the movie comes out, the only way we continue to pile on the pressure is that we use our, like, do what we do now, talk with your wallet and just absolutely sabotage that movie by boycotting it, because the base of that movie's audience was going to be D&D fans. What they were hoping for was that they would get enough regular D&D fans who would go and see it just because it's a D&D movie to have it break even, and then those people tell their non-D&D friends when they've seen it that the movie is really, really good, and then they'll go and see it. And what they're basically hoping for is what happened with Guardians of the Galaxy, is that the people who are really hardcore about it and either know who these guys are or have an idea what to expect from it will go in and they watch it, and it's a great film, they enjoy it, and then they come out and by word of mouth they go, man, I know it's a D&D movie and you don't play D&D, but it's like funny, it's like fantasy Guardians of the Galaxy, you have to go see it.
Yeah.
And that's what they're hoping for, that the base of that audience is going to be the core D&D fan base that then get the normies to come in and watch it, and that pushes that over the really successful line, and then they can greenlight a sequel and then start on a cinematic universe, because it's so obvious that that's what they want to do, because everyone wants to be Marvel at the moment. But like, I think the only way we can really send a message, if it's still going on, is to just cut the legs out under that from that movie entirely, regardless of how good it might be or how much I want to see it. And I fully admit I'm by nature quite cynical. I generally have a negative view of something.
Oh, what, you?
Fuck off, Connor. So like, you know, obviously I'm not going to be like the most optimistic outlook on that, but just going by like how I see corporations working and stuff, and like I don't think this is going to be resolved by Paddy's Day. Like I really don't.
Unless something drastic,
like
unless they turn around and go, hey, do you know what? Forget that whole like, new OGL. Just use the old one. That's fine. Like, unless they do that, it's really not going to be.
What we need is 4 ghosts, 1 in chains, 1 of past, 1 of present, and 1 of future, to come and visit the WotC C-suite employees and just rattle.
3 ghosts.
4. The 1 in chains, the ghost of past, the ghost of present, and the ghost of future.
Is that the ghost of...
Jake.
Oh, the ghost of... Yes, the first one is his friend who comes back.
Yeah, Jacob Marley. Marley, then the ghost of Chris past, present, and future. So what we need is that, or like some kind of what's the one where some sort of like It's a Wonderful Life kind of scenario where like an angel interferes.
You're assuming that the executives running Hasbro have a heart that can grow 3 sizes. I don't think that exists in the first place.
And I'm pretty sure whatever contract they signed in Asmodeus is going to stop them from that as well anyway.
Yeah, there's so many jokes to be made about them being the devil and
stuff. Man, no, the best joke I saw, and I'm so annoyed because it started going around the community as a meme, and I made that joke in Nerd Immersion's live chat when he was first reacting to the OGL, when they put in the "we won and so did you" kind of thing. I was like, this is literally the Grand Master in Thor Ragnarok going, great job everyone, great job on the revolution, couldn't have done it without you, of course you couldn't do it without me because you wouldn't have anyone to revolt against, how about we call it a draw? And I was like, this is the most fucking WotC thing ever that I've seen with that statement. The vein that just popped out of my neck there, holy crap, the OGL the OGL is getting to me.
Just to wrap up on something I want to cover very, very quickly. There is so with all this, because capitalism, and this is weirdly capitalism that I'm kind of in favor of, and it's why I suppose competitive markets are a good thing. There is other companies that have banded together in light of all this. They wasted no time in pouncing on D&D when they're in a vulnerable position. We have Paizo, Cobalt Press,
MCDM.
Well, MCDM is a separate. They're doing their own thing.
It's like Paizo.
There's a few. There's like maybe 9 companies that have come together, and they are creating the Orc license, which is the original. What's it called? What's that again?
It's the open roleplay gaming. A word beginning with C. Contract maybe. Also, the same people who are building the Orc have made it very, very clear on their socials and other channels that they are ready and willing to engage Wizards legally with about the revocation of the original OGL, because as far as it was intended to be irrevocable. So they're willing to take that on. They have lawyers hired, and they're ready to go with a legal challenge to the original.
It's called the Open RPG Creative License, or Orc license.
Yeah.
And this is gathering steam, and lots of people are on board, and it's multiple companies. Basically, what I love about this, right, is that they're going to create it, but no one company will own that license. They're going to create a third-party, separate, non-profit organization that will be in possession of this, so it cannot be altered by any one company in the group. And it basically means it'll basically like solidify, at least within this collection of companies and any others that want to join, a place where, hey, this is basically like an open license, and you can be totally part of any one of these games and still, be still have access to all this and not be squeezed in the way that you're being elsewhere. And also MCDM, you are right, are doing their own game. Check out Matt Kobold's Twitter, because they're literally playtesting stuff right now.
There's also heavy hints that from their statement, if you read between the lines, there's fairly heavy hints that Critical Role might be away from D&D and making their own system as well, which, judging by how Matt Mercer makes stuff for 5e, I would be way down to try a system entirely designed by Matt Mercer.
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, look, that's another thing as well. Also, don't be hating on people who are still, like I said, a lawyer. Don't be hating on people who are trying to make their living. D&D is a very intense and central part of Critical Role and what they do. It is entirely possible. Okay, they did it before, because pre-Critical Role stream, they were with Pathfinder and they moved to 5e. There's nothing saying they could not move back to
That's
Pathfinder.
What literally everyone has been saying is like Critical Role was Pathfinder before it was ever D&D. And if the biggest, like they are, without a doubt, they're the biggest name. They're the highest earning Twitch channel. They're the biggest name in the live play D&D space. If they suddenly go, hi, due to the, if their contract ends, and like campaign 4 comes up, and they go, hi, due to the actions of Wizards of the Coast during our previous campaign, we no longer feel safe and secure in them as our sponsor, so we have dropped them and D&D, and we've moved to Pathfinder 2nd edition. Here's a link to the Pathfinder website and all the rules to explain how you can understand the new system we're using. That would murder D&D.
That'd be a massive loss to them. It's again, a lot of people start playing D&D because of Critical Role, because they saw the game being played firsthand on stream, and they're like, that seems like fun, I'm going to get some friends together. It's what we did.
Yeah, it's exactly what happened with me and you.
Yeah. So there's okay, just to wrap up, there's a lot of stuff still up in the air, but we're going to keep track of it as it goes on. It seems like they're backtracking a little bit, which is good. We want them to backtrack and basically undo a lot of the bad stuff, but it's still not 100% there. No. And there's still a lot more leaks coming out that might indicate that they're placating to us for now, but they may turn that around at a later point. For now, at least, don't support Wizards. Don't give them any more money. Unsub if you can.
Support creators.
Support third-party creators. Make sure you're buying their content, because there's a lot of really good stuff by third-party creators out there. Don't buy any more books. Don't subscribe to D&D Beyond. And yeah, I guess just keep an eye on the situation. Don't let the community die. D&D has a great community. Don't let it die. But let's try to give our money to other community members and other people providing content instead of the corporation, which is trying to currently squeeze us and everyone in the community out of their livelihoods and out of their open license.
Absolutely.
Martin.
Yes, Conor.
That's all the time we have for today.
It was a long one, but
that was a doozy.
Important.
It was. If you have any questions you'd like us to ask, stories you'd like us to share, or topics you'd like us to cover, please tweet us at MikeFlayer'sPod on Twitter. You can find our podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Anchor Breaker, and Radio Republic. Martin, where can people find you on the internet?
Seeing as he still hasn't blasted it into orbit yet, Twitter mostly. At So Sorry It's Over. I really thought we were going to be using Mastodon or something by the time we came back from Christmas. I really did.
I have my I haven't even used it yet.
We both have Mastodon accounts with the
I'm
same
on
name.
Hive.
Hive, that was it. Yeah, we're both on Hive with the same username. If you want to follow us, we literally don't post there. The show is there as well. It's a backup in case Twitter dies. But yes, you can, for now, as I said last time, for now, you can find me on Twitter at So Sorry It's Over. Also on the Micflayers podcast at Micflayerspod. Conor, where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me on the internet at 0.Conor on Twitter, ZeroPointConor, 1N, very important. Or as always, every Friday here at 6 p.m. Irish time on the Micflayers podcast on all the aforementioned platforms. So thank you very much for joining us today. I don't know why I'm this close to the microphone, but I think it's working.
It's very podcasty.
I hope you have I hope you have it all have a nice day, a nice weekend, and we'll see you all next time.
See you, folks.